joining me. Michael D. Shaw is my guest. Mike, how are you?
Just great. What about you? How's your vegan diet?
It's going well. I really feel like I'm having like some kind of an eye irritation today. I don't know what that's about, but I wonder if it's after 60 plus years of toxicity. Maybe I'm leaching out all those toxins. I don't know. But
There may be something to that, actually.
yeah. Oh, I don't doubt it. I mean, I feel like, kind of something's lifting off my shoulders.
And you've
And
lost what, like 30 pounds?
no, I've lost about 5 pounds so far,
That's
but
pretty
that's a
good.
lot. That's
That's
good, and
pretty
that's a
good.
lot. And I'm totally on board with it. And I'm not finding it to be too difficult. It's a lot of. I realize that a lot of like what we eat and what we do, a lot of these things are, it's more just by habit. It's
Oh,
more like
absolutely.
psychological. I mean, like, I'm going along and I'm thinking, gee, why don't I have something that's not particularly healthy? And then I stop myself and say, well, why? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, why am I doing this? It's like it's an unawareness, and I'm finding that it's actually working out pretty well. And I feel like I'm grateful to my dear daughter for getting me into this, and I feel like I'm going to be healthy. I'll save my life.
Well, good.
So
Good news.
yeah. So, but I want to talk a little bit about this whole dust up between Candace Owens and Rabbi Shmuley Bayotek. What a character! I don't know if you're following the story, but
Not
he,
so much, not so much between Candace and Shmuley, but between Candace and your friend Ben Shapiro, who
and
I
Ben,
never really
yeah,
liked, by the way.
no, and I think he's really stepped in it by firing her, and she did nothing wrong. She did not.
Yeah.
She's not anti-Semitic. It's like a witch hunt. She was defending what's his face, the rapper. I forget his name now. Kanye,
Right.
who did. I mean, it said some stupid comment. I mean, it's like, and this is what gives. I mean, it's sort of a complete abuse of anti-Semitism, as I get into, by the way, in my book. And by the way, speaking of which, I want to thank the guys over at the Jew Function for interviewing me yesterday. What a great interview! They have a
Oh,
pretty big YouTube show, and it's going to be up, I think, in a few days after they finish editing it. And I get into the fact that the idea of anti-Semitism is, and by the way, Dr. E. Michael Jones is quite right about this, even though his motives are bad, in that it's, he comes at it from a different
yeah.
standpoint than I am, but it is used as a vehicle by scoundrels to try to win an argument. And yeah, this has nothing to do with that. I mean, it's like, if you, and it does apply for groups like the ADL to liberal causes. If you're against abortion, you're an anti-Semite. If you're
Well,
against
what
gay
it's come down
marriage,
to, and you probably know this, I forgot the name of the guy, apparently a Holocaust survivor, said it's very sad that the definition of anti Semitism changed from someone who hates Jews to somebody that Jews don't like.
exactly. And by Jews, we're not talking your regular garden variety Jew here. We're talking
Yeah.
about ultra liberal Jews,
Yeah.
like, for example, Merrick Garland, who disgustingly attacked questions I think it was Ted Cruz, by saying, "Did you know I survived the Holocaust?" It had
What?
nothing to
Him?
do. Yeah, I mean, and I think that Mayorkas has intoned this. It's scoundrelous, and it makes my stomach turn
Oh,
that
wait,
they would
did
do
but
that.
you're saying that Garland actually said that he
No,
personally.
no, that his parents or his relatives were Holocaust survivors. Fine, had nothing to do with what they were talking about. He's, he was being asked about why it is he's sending spies into Catholic churches and
Yeah.
to school board meetings, and to as a way to dodge those questions, he intones this piece of biography which is completely irrelevant, and which
And
implies
may
that
not
anyone
even be
who
true, by the way.
probably
I
not.
mean, it's the old thing that if all these people were related to Holocaust survivors, there would have been 10 times as many in the camp. I mean, you don't want to make light of it.
No, I know what you mean. There'd be a lot more surviving. But or Holocaust victims, I should say, by
Yeah.
the way, just to be more precise. But the point is that it's not relevant to what they were talking about, and it's scoundrelous that he would intone that at a time like that. Same, and Mayorkas is the most disgusting of all. He makes my skin crawl anyway. That he would intone this. Oh, I had family members who were victims of the Nazi Holocaust. I
Well,
don't
so
really
what?
care. Yeah, I mean,
So
I don't give a damn what he has. I'm interested in the fact that he's swung open the border of the United States. But the point is that that's that's what I think that Ben Shapiro has done to Candace Owens. Now I understand these are sensitive times. Israel was invaded. These are, Israel had to confront a genocidal attack, and yes, that's all true. And these are, it's kind of a time when I think Jews are super sensitive, and there's sort of a sense of cohesion that we're all in this together. But and I feel that. But the point is that she did nothing wrong. I mean, she's questioning whether Israel has been overly zealous in its prosecution of the war in Gaza. That's a legitimate political question. I would argue they're not, but the point is,
I
there
would
are
agree with you.
people. Yeah, I mean, there are people that can. This is a war. I mean, you have to question everything that goes on, and we don't know everything that's going on because anytime there's a war, there's a lot of narrative and a lot of censorship and a lot of each side pushing their own stories. And I mean, but anyway, she then brought up Rabbi Shmuley and attacked him because she said that he's selling sex toys. That his daughter has a sex toy business where she sells dildos and other sex paraphernalia, and that he's claiming that this is kosher, that he's speaking as a Jew. And so I looked him up, and his website, his
Well, hang
website,
on, hang on. What? How would the laws of kosher apply to a sex toy?
well, this is outrageous. It's a preposterous that as a rabbi, and not only is he a rabbi, but he claims to be. He goes his website, Rabbi Shmuley Beotek, America's rabbi. Really? Where did he come up with that? He's America's rabbi? Boy, have we fallen low. If
Well,
that's
I'm kind of obsessive on this. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe you can help me with this. So if you have a dildo based on a bull, that would be kosher, but on a pig would not be.
I mean, look, the whole thing is disgusting and ridiculous. There's nothing kosher about sex toys. This is like, and that he's using his authority not only as a rabbi, and he claims to speak at least indirectly for the Jewish people, but he's claiming to be, quote, America's rabbi, whom the Washington Post and Newsweek called, quote, the most famous rabbi in America, is for many the face of Judaism, he tells us, in the modern world. What kind of a grandiloquent, arrogant person is this? I mean, I can think of a lot more rabbis in this country who are much more scholarly and much more Torah true and much more aware of the intricacies of Jewish law and Jewish life, and but aren't they blowing their horn like this and sending out press releases? I'm America's rabbi, and then
So,
he's
so I had heard of the guy. He's obviously a big self promoter, but
right.
why did it bother Shapiro that Candace deigned to attack this guy?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, he sided with Shmuley, and Shmuley is there selling sex gadgets and butt plugs apparently through his
Oh, that's
daughter's business. It's disgusting, and not only that, but then Shmuley responded by putting up a video on his own Facebook page of a Purim celebration. Now, in Purim, you're supposed to put on costumes, and it's kind of like the Jewish version of the Mardi Gras. Or the Irish version of St. Patrick's Day, where you kind of let loose and you get a little drunk and you kind of have these funny skits and all that sort of thing. Well, the thing that he put up was so utterly disgusting. With his, he portrayed himself. You have to see this. I mean, it's awful, as like the worst stereotype of a Jew. He put on this big thick nose with pimples on it, And he's a weird and rather unpleasant looking guy anyway, but he made himself so hideous. And then he's there twerking with his young son, sitting on his lap. And then he grabbed the nipples of his young daughter. Oh, these are grandchildren, actually. And he's shaking his ass all over the place.
Really?
It was the most disgusting display. And it just, I mean, it's bad enough that he's doing this, and it's kind of inexplicable. But then he's America's rabbi. I mean, this is it plays right into the hands of people like Dr. Jones and like Stu Peters, who, by the way, I admire as a talk show host, but I think he's wrong on Jewish issues. But I think he's sincere. He never lies, unlike Dr. Jones. He's actually an honest guy. But the point is that for Shmuley to get up there like that, it's repulsive to me, and I feel embarrassed. I feel like I have to explain this. It goes into the worst stereotypes of Jews that are held by anti-Semites.
So was Shapiro defending this or what?
I don't know if Shapiro just sort of said that Candace, after a number of instances, he felt that she was, anti-Semitic mainly because of her criticism of the state of Israel, which I think he's dead wrong about. He talks about being a great libertarian who has different points of view on his broadcast, but obviously he doesn't tolerate anyone that doesn't genuflect to his view on the state of Israel. Now, I would say that I happen to agree with him, probably. I don't want to agree with anybody totally, but nevertheless, I mean, I would have people on who don't agree. I mean, that's not the way to go. It's bad enough that you get these very prominent Jews in organizations like the ADL pushing censorship and claiming that people are, engaging in misinformation. But to have Shapiro do that, it's really not good. I don't think it's a good look for him. I think it's going to probably jeopardize his whole business, I would imagine.
Well, there was that, and Andrew Klavan, who's also on Daily Wire.
Right, who actually said
convoluted explanation of what Candace did wrong, and Klavan's trying to come across like he's a Christian, which I really doubt.
Well, he claims that he was baptized Christian. He's one of these guys. It's like those lawyers who work they're great guys. I mean, they work with Trump. I'm trying to think of their name. But they're like Jews who convert to Christianity. That's fine. That's their business. But the point is, he said something about that the term Christ is king is an anti-Semitic term. That's ridiculous.
No.
That's crazy stuff.
Know. Well, in seeing that video, I almost felt like someone put him up to it.
Yeah, probably Shapiro.
Yeah, because there's nothing anti-Semitic about it at all.
No, I've never heard that. I mean, that's absurd. I mean, are they going to try to say that anything Christian is anti-Semitic? I mean, that's...
there are people that...
And by the way, even if it is, tough noogies, I mean, that's part of their faith. Look, I do think there's some anti-Semitism in the Christian doctrines, and that's fine. I'm not going to try to change Christian doctrine. I mean, it's like, get over it. We have to kind of, tolerate differences. That's why we have different religions. I mean, it's just crazy stuff.
Yeah. So, no, I think he's hurting his brand, but then again, he's had a lot of chances, Shapiro, because he was violently anti-Trump 2016 election.
Yeah.
For no apparent reason that I could ever figure out, other than Trump did not fit his sort of lace curtain.
Yeah, exactly. Him and the one at Blaze, I forget his name now, but also was violently anti-Trump. Then he took a 180-degree turn. Who's who I mean at Blaze?
Oh, Glenn Beck.
Glenn Beck, yeah. They were viciously anti-Trump, and then he went 180 when Trump won.
Well, what they didn't realize is, and we talked about this before, that this represented, you talk about Wendell Willkie, but yes. I prefer referring to Nelson Rockefeller as the quintessential lace curtain Republican. We don't want to be around these smelly blue collar people, so we're going to be in this country club Republican setup. And
Yeah.
Trump was this, let's be honest, this guy from Queens who was not
Yes.
so genteel. And that's
Exactly.
not how a Republican is supposed to be. A Republican is supposed to have manicured fingernails and perfect clothing and whatnot. And Shapiro, I always thought, was like the luckiest guy in the world, in that he
Yeah.
came, when I first saw this guy, there was a video when he was going by the name Benjamin Shapiro, um, and he was a teenager, playing
Is it
some violin concerto,
right?
and he was just this kind of poindexterous sort
Right.
of figure.
A real geek. When he was at Harvard, he was
Yeah.
like that too.
And then he goes to Harvard, whatever, and then starts becoming some sort of conservative commentator. Uh, but the other shtick that I hate that he does, which is so phony, is this idea of talking fast, which makes you sound smarter
Yeah.
somehow.
I know he rattles along. Him and this
And
guy Destiny, they just rattle away.
so I think they blew it with this. I'm not sure if Jeremy Boring, what a name, agrees with
Uh,
Shapiro, or Shapiro's his boy and he just has to support him all the time. I don't
right.
know. Not a good look.
No, and there were some good people over there too. I mean, I like Michael Knowles. I like Matt Walsh. You know, they're going to end up having, you know, they'll end up having a little bit of a taint on them by staying with this whole ship that as it goes down. I don't know if it will, but it's I mean, I think that he just really stepped in it with this. Candace
Well, now
Owens is
that
a
you mention it,
tremendous
I
thinker.
mean, and you may not agree with this, but I think that Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles are a little bit gelded by the platform. No, seriously, because when Matt Walsh was doing that thing, What is a Woman? I
Tremendous.
think he was far too polite
Really?
with the
Okay.
people he was interviewing.
Well, he was no, he did. I thought that he was doing a classic journalist thing, where he let people be who they were, and he
Bury
just would set.
themselves.
Yeah, I mean, he set the stage. I no, to me, that's tremendous work. I mean, he didn't impose his own opinion on it. He allowed everyone to make up their own mind, and he got these people to talk and expose themselves and how hideous they are, and particularly these professors that he interviewed and these doctors, and he just allowed them to rattle on. I mean, that to me is great journalism, and I think that's what he did.
Well, don't you think it could have improved if fine, he lets him speak, but then maybe attack him a little bit, do the sort of Mike Wallace approach. Yeah, let him speak, but then those
Maybe,
two professors and it's the two that we're thinking of.
maybe
Well,
I know what you mean. I was kind of waiting for him to take the gloves off a little bit, but
yeah,
he, yeah, I do think that's an important piece though, and he did.
oh
It
yeah,
made a huge difference in our culture. It exposed something that most people had no idea was going on, and it really he was able to like get to the root of the problem. I mean, he
oh yeah,
showed.
full marks for that.
Oh yeah, I mean, doctors were talking about, basically, hysterectomies for like preteen girls and
Yeah,
castration, and they were doing it as if it's something virtuous. And I don't think he could have gotten people to talk about that if he'd come on with, a little bit of a heavier hand. So that's journalism, and I think that it's almost like, I mean, it's like what James O'Keefe does, I suppose. You go in and you kind of don't, you hold the cards close to the vest and you get people to reveal themselves. Larry King, I know you're not a fan, but he actually was pretty good at that, right? I mean, first of all, it's because he was so ignorant. He never read a book, but putting that aside, he
oh,
would
that was
get
it.
people, yeah, but the point is he would get people to reveal a lot more of what was going on with them
That is
than
true.
he than he would have if he had come in like maybe I would come in, blazing with fists. Then it turns into nothing but a shouting match, and you don't learn anything. So,
Yeah, I mean, there were times where that didn't work too well for Larry King.
oh, I know, and then he
That
would be
infamous
embarrassed.
interview with Jerry Seinfeld,
It was very bad. Yeah,
but it's a matter of style, of course.
Right. I mean, another master of that is well, before he went on the dark side was Howard Stern. I mean, he's completely gone into the, I don't know why. He certainly made a few bucks in his day. What does he need to? But he used to be able to get people to talk about the most amazing personal things that you wouldn't even talk about with your own spouse.
Yeah,
I mean, and it was like you felt like almost like you're like an eavesdropper on a phone call. I mean, it almost had a voyeuristic sense. You feel like a peeping in someone's window, the way he
yeah,
would get people to talk about their sex life or just personal stuff. And he was very good at it because he would disarm someone. He would make them feel so they would forget where they were. They would forget that they were talking to his millions of people. They would just be sitting there hanging out with him at a bar. And he
yeah.
would get, and it was amazing. He was very skilled at that. Anyway, but this whole kerfuffle is interesting in that I find myself siding with people who I normally would not side with on the business of Shmuley, and I think that he's an absolute disgrace to as a rabbi to have to go out with this stuff and to be there selling sex toys with his daughter. I mean, it's just it's to say it's creepy is an understatement. And then I heard him on with Alex Jones. Oh, it's all good because it helps marriages, and I'm fine. Why is he? He should. It's not for a rabbi to be involved. I mean, if he wants to promote that kind of thing, open a storefront with tinted windows or something. I don't know. It's not really the role of somebody who claims to be representing Judaism. Judaism does not condone sex toys. I mean, is that what he wants people to think? It sort of plays into the hands of people that we don't want to encourage.
Well, it certainly enforces stereotypes that people would have,
Yeah.
and yeah,
But what do you think of the? I mean, it appears, speaking of lace curtain Republicans and rhinos, they do appear to have a strategy of stopping Trump at this point because, barring, God forbid, an assassination, and I am saying that because I do think that's the only thing that can stop Trump now. They are trying to set it up so that they are resigning from Congress early, so there won't be a special election, as in the case of this guy Buck and this guy Gallagher. They're following, apparently, they're conversing with McCarthy, who wants him to do this, because out of spite, I think he wants revenge. And if they vacate those seats and there's no special election, then the Congress is going to go to the Democrats. They're now down to just one, I think, once this guy Gallagher leaves, if he does this. And he's being pressured not to do it. But I would imagine there's a lot of forces encouraging him, including moneyed forces, frankly. I don't know that, but he's being there's some there's some awards for him for doing this, and I think that what's going to happen is if the Congress goes to the Democrats and Jeffries, and Trump then wins, they're going to not they're not going to confirm the election. They're going to they're going to start with insurrection legislation. They're going to say we can't certify this election because of the 14th Amendment. And then if that doesn't work and he's not inaugurated, they're going to launch impeachment immediately, probably within minutes of his taking the oath of office. I think that's what's going on. What do you think?
yeah, I would have to agree. And of course, you and I don't need any more reinforcement of how corrupt things are
Right.
and how the rhinos were all bad news from the beginning. We'll never know, and maybe it'll come out in 50, 100 years, how Trump in his first term succumbed to these rhinos. I believe that he was getting some conventional political advice.
Well, I think that he's learned his lesson. I mean, it's a little late, but apparently Lara Trump, his daughter-in-law, heading the RNC, is insisting that people take a loyalty oath to join the staff, including whether, and she sends out a questionnaire that asks, one of the questions is, do you believe that the 2020 election was stolen? Yes or no?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that tells me, and the left is their heads are blowing up over this. Oh my God, it's authoritarian, it's fascist. No, it shows that he wants loyalists near him. He's learned that he was surrounded by people who were stabbing him in the back. They were leaking. They were bugging his phone. They were, reporting. I mean, all of those stories we heard throughout his presidency, where he would say something stupid or something embarrassing, and then suddenly would be on the front of all the big newspapers. They got that because somebody was bugging his phone.
Oh,
They
yeah.
got that because someone was spying on him, which, by the way, is a felony. And nobody ever talked about how they got these. There was always some unnamed source. Nobody ever faced the music on that. Nobody was ever prosecuted for that. Those are crimes. So I think that Trump learned, and he's going to be very careful now. It's too late in the day to save the first term, but I don't think he's going to make that mistake again. He's going to get people around him who are going to be loyal to him, as anyone should.
Well, you're right. I think what this exposes, I mean, the fact that these rhinos are quitting left and right. The good news, if that's the term, is that now they don't care anymore. They're not even trying to fool anybody about how corrupt this is. But, after living in the D.C. area for nearly 20 years, it was pretty clear to see what's going on. There is no, quote, opposition.
Right.
It's just they're all part of the same swamp. And the easiest argument that the swamp exists, which I've used in numerous articles one way or the other, is that we proved that money does not cure poverty, right? There was over $20 trillion spent on the, quote, war on poverty through the years.
And then we lost it.
Still have poor people, right?
Sure.
Well, this money went to this endless cadre of lobbyists, beltway bandits, consultants, and whatever. And it's destroying the country, this whole parasitic class. And I've met over those years far too many of these people.
Oh yeah, I mean it's the whole cottage industry. I mean they'll knock a few crumbs off the table after they have they feast on all of the funds. I mean one example that comes up recently is the Clinton Foundation raised $14 billion to help relieve Haiti. I think Haiti got maybe a few $1,000,000 out of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, and now that we see that gangs have taken over that country and it's horrible, I think they could have used those funds perhaps. Maybe if the Clintons actually had invested in that country instead of putting it in their fat pockets, maybe there would be maybe they wouldn't have this kind of instability.
Well, and that's why they're afraid of Trump, because
that's right. That's right.
He's the exact archetypal guy of what they don't want. Self-made.
And not only that, but if Trump gets in there, he's going to expose these people, and they're not going to go down easy. They're going to try to stop Trump. I mean, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that they will resort to, having him murdered. I do think, I pray for his safety. I mean, they're going to do whatever they have to do.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, but
no, it wouldn't.
I think that he's savvy enough. And as I said, the good part of this is they're so desperate that they're not even trying to hide it anymore.
Yeah.
And, the light is exposing all the cockroaches as they're scurrying around. It's unfortunate because there have been way too many true believers in this corrupt system. And it's gone on for far too long.
And there's some honest people in there because they're losing all of these cases. I mean, the Tish James thing is gone, basically. That's been thrown out. Trump is not. Oh, I love the way they were celebrating the night before last Sunday on MSNBC. Trump is going to lose Trump Tower. Oh, it was almost like, Castro entering Havana. We're going to take this. We're going to grab that. And that's over. That's not going anywhere. Trump is going to appeal it, and it'll be thrown out. it's obviously fake. And now the Hooker case is falling apart. The last thing to come out is that there's a whistleblower near Michael Cohen, the corrupt, rotten lawyer and perjurer, and convicted felon, that he had shaken down the Trump company. Trump knew nothing about it, and that he was having an affair with a hooker. So that's coming out. And then you have Jack Smith. He's not even in the country. I think he's in the Balkans. And the whole business of the documents raiding Melania's underwear drawer. I think that's fallen apart because of the Biden papers. I mean, the Biden special prosecutor has now said that there are still some documents that he wasn't able to get his hands on because they think it might have something to do with Tara Reade and her complaint against Biden. So that story is continuing to percolate, and that kind of cancels out the story against Trump. Plus, he was illegally using classified information and giving it to his biographer and whatnot. And I think, and obviously, Fannie in Atlanta, that doesn't have much credibility anymore, does it? So I think that all of it hasn't really flown. It hasn't worked for them.
Well,
What are they
again,
going to
the
do?
truth is, if you're going to create this conspiracy to get Donald Trump, maybe you should try to find people who are competent to carry it out.
Yeah.
So this raises the question, do they have any competent people on their side? It's one thing to talk about Mark Elias, but he's
Right.
not the prosecutor that's, on the ground doing this. So all they could come up with was this disgusting woman in Fulton County.
It didn't fly.
And she did not come across well.
No.
She didn't know enough, by the way, to get rid of this stupid ghetto attitude that she was trying to put up there. It didn't help that she had her dress on backwards.
Yeah, it embarrassed black people.
Just weird. Who knows what that was about? This idea with the cash, which was absurd. None of this.
It's ridiculous, and it's. By the way,
how is Tish James worth $14 million?
That's a good question.
Being a civil servant in New York State,
Oh yeah, I mean they're all very corrupt, all of these people. So, what do you think about the collapse of the bridge in Baltimore, the Francis Scott Key Bridge? It's very suspicious, I think.
Well, the thing that makes it not 100% suspicious is that if you look at the size of these super freighters, there's not a whole lot of clearance between the piers on that bridge. I mean, that doesn't mean you should hit it.
Yeah, but the freighter was going right for it.
Yeah.
And apparently there was blackouts, and then, and this is like a weird thing. I didn't actually see this, but I keep hearing this, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating something here without full knowledge, but there was the film that Obama made, this dystopian film. The Obamas, their station sponsored it. That one of the scenes in that film is the collapse of a bridge that was hit by a cargo ship.
Yeah.
And it looks apparently uncannily like the Baltimore Bridge. And it shows this. They keep showing that video over and over again. I don't know how to read into that, but that movie seems to have some predictive elements to it.
The suspicious part of it for me is if you're having all these power issues.
Yeah.
Why do you keep going? Was it sabotage? What's happening?
Was it like a cyber attack? Was it like, did they scramble somehow the cyber system? I know that I just read that, for example, in the Baltic states, near Russia, airplanes are being scrambled with this confusing GPS malfunction while they're in the air. And, I think that cyber attacks, I would argue, and I can't prove this, It might have something to do with the computer machines of the 2020 election. I don't know that. But we know that they were online, and we know that there was some algorithm issues. I mean, the thing that seems to be uniquely beneficial with cyber attacks is that there are no fingerprints. It's hard to prove it. It's hard for people to even know it. Even experts in the field, people who have high level degrees in technology, computer technology, can't detect. I think I had on Captain what was his name? Captain Seth Keschel, who's an expert on this, who talked about this. That even those people don't know what's going on. It's very difficult to get your handle on it.
Well,
And
remember one thing that when you have, I mean, the fact that we're even asking these questions
yeah,
means there's a shade of doubt in what's going on. So a related sort of thing is, are professional sports rigged? Now, how do you know when that wide receiver drops that pass, whether he legitimately dropped it or whether he purposely dropped it?
yes,
You
exactly.
really don't know. So the fact that you're even thinking about that uh, is interesting, because all I can say is look at past experience. How often do these cargo ships hit bridges? Not too damn often.
No. And there's
Now,
that, and
over,
there's all these derailments around the country, and
yeah,
these food plants that are being burned. I mean, it's just, I mean, I do think about these things in a conspiratorial context. And I wonder if this isn't America under attack. Our infrastructure, our supply chains. I mean, that bridge that goes over there in Baltimore, that is a very important artery that connects the North and the South. That's the Mason-Dixon line has been reestablished in a way. These aren't trivial things. I mean, this is like, yeah, this could be an outright. This is almost, it's not the same as 9/11, but unfortunately, there weren't a lot of innocent people there. There was about 8 people there, 6 of whom have disappeared, and they did it at night. It wasn't like during rush hour, but so I mean, at least we could be grateful for that. But it's just I'm sorry, but it just seems awfully calculated to me. Why now? I mean,
yeah, I would agree. And
Lieutenant
of course,
General Michael Flynn has said that we can expect these black swan events between now and election day. Is this part of
yeah,
that?
I would agree with him. Um,
Yeah.
you reach a point where does something pass the smell test here,
Yes.
and it, if nothing else, just comes across. It just feels off. It feels off. All
It
right,
does.
maybe it's really calculated. It's not strictly speaking a terrorist attack in that you didn't kill 1,000 people,
Right.
but you did a hell of a lot of damage
Oh, the
to a major
damage to
artery.
that is enormous. I mean, that could really affect the entire supply line for the East Coast.
Yeah,
I don't think that we really are grasping the seriousness of that. I mean, that's like it's like really a major break. It's something that would be a military target if we were at war.
and yet the media is trying to
Oh well,
dismiss everything.
they're already going to
Seriously.
start in by saying anybody that questions that nothing happened is involved with wild conspiracy theories, and it's the same sort of line of attack that's been going on since the assassination of Kennedy. I
Yeah.
mean, I think at that point, the CIA deliberately concocted this idea that anybody that questioned the official narrative of that was a quote conspiracy theorist.
Well, they invented the term
They did.
conspiracy.
They did. And they invented it as a negative. Now, of course, they've got their own conspiracy theories that are horrible, like Putin conspired with or, quote, colluded with Trump to steal the 2016 election, or the perfect phone call and all those other crap. I mean, those are conspiracy theories. But anyway,
I think what's happening now, if you want to compare the Kennedy assassination, is,
yeah,
and let me relate your friend Judith Reisman,
yes,
where an article appeared. I think Peter Bregan and his daughter have a Substack, and they published essentially Judith Reisman's work reinterpreted. on Alfred Kinsey. All right. So someone posted on there, why did people accept this crap? And I posted a comment in reply to that, which actually the Bregans liked. And it's very hard for us to believe now in 2024. But in the late 1940s, early 1950s, people trusted academia. This was some professor. He was
Right.
the authority. And you,
Yes.
little man, are going to believe what this guy says. All right. Now,
Plus,
fast forward to
I mean, Time
1960.
Magazine put him up on the front cover,
Oh, yeah. Now,
and they were a known CIA enabler. I mean, I mean that's part of an agenda.
well, right. Now, use those eyes to look at November 1963. All right.
Yes.
How do you find some loser with a mail order gun climbing up to the top of this building and shooting the president?
Right. And obvious look, I mean, I'm having Dr. Jerome Corsi on. He's just come out with another book about the assassination,
Oh,
where he shows it completely and unequivocally that there were 4 shots fired, that 3 of them came in from the front and 1 of them came in from the back. And it would have been impossible to have one person do that. I mean, Oswald was aimed from the back. Maybe he might have gotten off 1 shot, but it's just, I mean, everyone knows they did that in broad daylight, right on downtown Dallas. I mean, that's what worries me now, because they didn't care. I mean, it was so blatant. I mean,
well,
Roger Stone
it
seems
was blatant. It was blatant then, but they had the advantage that you have to admit, people in 1963 didn't, or most of them, didn't think like this.
That's right. So maybe that's a good thing, because back then people just accepted it and they mourned and they moved on. Nobody believed that there could have been this bigger agenda going on, this bigger conspiracy. Never mind that the whole country changed. I mean, I wrote a book about this called Assassination in America, where I look at a lot of assassinations. You have to look at them as a conspiracy, especially if it's someone who is powerful and who is in a position of influence. Of course they're being assassinated. That's just it's the nature of power. If there's a lot of at stake in a particular situation and someone's standing in the way, or they may affect it, and someone is going to lose something because of that, of course that they could be assassinated. Obviously. I mean, anytime a president dies under mysterious circumstances, of course you have to look into that. I mean, I show historically cases like Zachary Taylor, William Henry Harrison. I mean, these people, there were reasons why they might have been killed. There were people who needed to get rid of them because they were standing in the way of a particular agenda. And you can look at what happened after they died. There was a sudden shift. They were about to do certain things and they didn't happen. James Garfield, William McKinley. I mean, I'm not saying that things just don't happen out of the blue, but you have to examine these things and say, who gained, as the Latin saying, qui bono, who gained, who benefits, and what happened afterwards. I mean, after the Kennedy assassination, there were major changes in the way we govern this country. The Vietnam War, probably, I don't think Kennedy would have done that. He got rid of he was issuing silver certificates. That was stopped the next day. The war on poverty, all that stuff. Kennedy wasn't into any of that.
No.
Kennedy was actually a conservative. He was a patriot.
By today's standards, oh yeah.
Yeah, I think by any standard. And I think Kennedy stood in the way of this whole agenda.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is that too many people are mired into this stuff happens concept of history. In other words, on May 1st, 1915, this happened and that happened, and the Lusitania sank, and so just a series of dates and events.
Right.
And it's almost never that you would talk about the Lusitania, for example. Why was it sunk? What the heck went on? but history is basically it happened in 1915, and so it was just never the thing back then to go into any depth on this stuff.
Right.
Now I must unfortunately leave early
Okay.
and wish everybody
All right, Mike.
Easter Triduum.
Same here.
Uh, we will see you next week.
Next week. You bet. All right, Mike. Thanks a lot.
Take
All
care.
right. Take care.